Hi, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to the AgroFresh MasterClass Quality and Freshness webinar series. My name is Emily Gant. I'm a Senior Account Manager in the Pacific Northwest. Over the last 2 weeks, we've talked about our Fresh Cloud quality system, as well as ethylene management with SmartFresh. And today we're going to be hearing from Colin Bryant, Senior Account Manager in the Pacific Northwest, on near harvest ripening for better quality and bigger yields. And then we'll pass it over to Julio Cruz, our Regional Operations Manager for North America, to talk about Harvesta application and calibration. Before we get started, I wanted to just share some insight on AgroFresh. AgroFresh is the leader in post-harvest freshness solutions for the fresh produce market. At AgroFresh, we find ourselves in the middle of the 4 different pillars that our customers are in the field, in storage, in transit, and in retail. Our mission is to combine deep scientific knowledge with applied industry know-how to extend the shelf life of the best tasting produce to help prevent food waste and conserve our planet's resources. We've been doing this by being able to protect over 25,000 storage rooms and selling products in over 50 countries. The AgroFresh difference addresses the customer needs by being able to oversee the entire supply chain with near harvest, post-harvest storage packing processes, and in transit. Our field ethylene management product, Harvesta, which is what we'll be learning more about today, helps us look at how to promote longer ripening time for improved quality, color, labor, and harvest management. We also have a wide portfolio that protects freshness, firmness, and quality in storage and through transportation in the storage room for our customers, as well as retail and in transit with plant-based organic coatings. We're able to capture information by using our Fresh Cloud platform to integrate this across the entire supply chain to really have that end-to-end view and visibility. We're able to do this with our global presence. All the green dots you see here on the map are all of our R&D centers across the globe. The red dot in the middle is Philadelphia. That is our global headquarters. We have already over 3,700 customers that we work with across the globe and are located in key growing regions. With the wide variety of crops that we work with, we're able to share information across different regions to help solve our customers' problems when it comes to fruit quality and produce. Before we jump in today, I want to just kind of review some housekeeping. So if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A section on the bottom of your toolbar. We'll be answering those live as we get to the Q&A session. But first, we're going to hear from Colin Bryant on near harvest ripening for better quality and bigger yields. After Colin, we're going to hear from one of our customers, our guest speaker, Jeff Cleveringa with Columbia Fruit Packers. And then we'll finish with Julio Cruz on Harvesta installation and calibration. Once we finish those 3 presentations, we'll come back as a group for a live Q&A. So we'll be answering your questions live at the very end. To start, we're going to pass it over to Colin Bryant.
Everyone, my name is Colin Bryant. I'm a Senior Account Manager here at AgroFresh. Today, we'll be talking about Harvesta and controlling near harvest ripening for better quality and bigger yields in our crops. Some of the discussion topics for today are the importance of controlling near harvest ripening, role of ethylene management on 1 MCP in ripening control, Harvesta, a unique near harvest solution to ripening control, and Harvesta, its installation and calibration tools and videos. The importance of controlling near harvest ripening for quality. Characteristics of quality to consumers is closely tied to quality factors that drive profits for growers in managing fruit quality. Color and size, as well as firmness, are strong indicators that can be utilized to ensure final quality for consumption. And managing harvest windows while reducing defects along the way is critical to maximizing profitability. Growers are facing increasing pressure regarding environmental and labor factors that increase costs and put even greater importance on controlling near harvest ripening. Taking control of near harvest ripening is a key to ensuring a quality final product, which is largely driven by ethylene management. Ethylene is a natural plant hormone that influences development and stress responses throughout the plant life cycle. Ethylene accelerates the maturation, and this acceleration happens in both the orchard and post-harvest sectors. Ethylene production rate and sensitivity varies by different crops. Near harvest ethylene management slows the ripening process, giving the grower an extended optimal harvest window, allowing more time for growth and optimum quality development, creating for higher yield and superior quality. The role of 1-MCP in ripening control. In this diagram, you can see the plant cell membrane with its ethylene receptors. 1-MCP essentially mimics the molecule of ethylene, plugging the ethylene receptor so that the plant thinks it has received ethylene when in fact it has not. All produce emits ethylene gas. It's a natural hormone as it starts to ripen. The rising ethylene levels in the air signal the fruit to keep ripening until the point of decay. Ethylene production can be manipulated in pre-harvest or post-harvest. The goal is to reach peak ripeness without negatively impacting fruit storability. 1-MCP is the gas, as I said, that mimics the ethylene molecule and prevents binding to the fruit receptor sites, delaying acceleration of the maturity process caused by ethylene. Harvista, a unique harvest solution for ripening control. What is Harvista and why use it? Harvista is a sprayable 1-MCP technology specifically formulated to control the effects of ethylene in the orchard environment. By limiting the fruit's response to ethylene, growers can expect a range of benefits such as improved harvest management, increasing your optimal harvest window up to 14 days, the ability to manage the fruit maturity on the tree for better size and color development, consistency and optimal maturity for enhanced storage potential, reduction of ethylene-induced fruit drop, delayed onset and incidence of water core, reduced waste and food loss, and enhanced quality promotes opportunity for machine harvest. As we all know, with the costs associated with harvesting, machine harvest in most every crop is becoming more and more prevalent. You want to apply Harvista 3 to 14 days before the targeted harvest date. It has a pre-harvest interval of 3 days with a re-entry of 4 hours. Reduced ethylene production in apples and pears. It all comes back to ethylene management. Over the next few slides, we'll review the positive effects of managing ethylene with near harvest applications on apples, pears, cherries, and blueberries. No partner knows more about apples than your partner at AgroFresh. Pacific Northwest customers have been relying on Harvista since 2012 to combat the harmful effects of unwanted pre-harvest ethylene production in apples. We improved and expanded the starch hydrolysis monitoring technology that we use to determine the optimal application timing on your fruit. We've also expanded our focus to include base and alu-fatted varieties. We've had several Coke varieties in apples as we've seen come on. In 2014, we had mainly Red Delicious, Gala, and Honeycrisp. Now it's Reds, Galas, Honeys, Grannies, and Sugar Bees, Cosmics, and every other apple that we're moving into. Solutions to dry yield. Not only does Harvista control ethylene-induced fruit drop, as in this example of Honeycrisp, you also get the added benefit of increased premium color. And we know that to make money in apples, you need that premium color. The best near harvest solution on the market, that would be Harvista. Harvista provides unmatched quality control, nearly doubling the stem cracking reduction of the nearest competitor and providing 30% greater control of starch. Increased volume of yield and increased quality of yield adds to higher profitability. Work with your AgroFresh representative to evaluate Harvista results and quantify the impact on your profit. Now we'll move on to some pears. The key to pear quality and profitability is Harvista. As you can see here, we have benefits of fruit drop. You have the untreated versus harvested, as well as rot after 19 days of application, and of course, a firmer pear. Firmer blueberries provides harvest flexibility and higher yield. As you can see, blueberries with Harvista applied to them averaged around 12 to 12% higher firmness retention versus control. This is important because, as we know, everyone's wanting to move to machine harvested blueberries. And we've seen that 78% of blueberries bruise during harvest with a machine, while 20% of blueberries bruise in hand harvest. What we've shown with Harvista is that we can get you a marketable yield pack out with a machine pick that's equal to what you can get with a hand pick. This is important because this is how you'll decrease your costs and increase your efficiency in harvest. Harvista provides the very firmness needed to ensure that quality pick, whether it is by hand or machine. Defect reduction leads to an increased pack out. Increasing berry firmness leads to cleaner fruit and improved pack outs, resulting in an increased marketable yield. This all leads to increased profit. And not only is this good for the grower, this is also good for the packing house, because better, cleaner fruit allows you to run the line at a much faster pace, and efficiency is everything in packaging. For cherries, a good cherry yield depends on a good fruit set. If you don't set the flowers, you are just growing leaves and sticks. Fruit set factors depend on weather, nutritional stresses, genetics and hormonal processes, of course, ethylene. Harvista prevents the negative ethylene effect during bloom. It does this by improving the quality of your flowers, the stigma, style, and ovary, prolonging their life, and extending the pollination window to just secure fruit set and quality yield. As we've seen, this would have been great last year. We all should have used it. There are many complex factors that impact flower longevity and pollen germination times in cherries. Harvista provides increased cherry yield. It is applied once at 10% and again at 50%. And we've seen growers report an average of 64.5% increase in yield with the double application. And you can see some of our varieties on the right. Harvista provides increased fruit size. If you start off with a healthier flower and a healthier set, you'll get a healthier piece of fruit. Fruit size will not suffer from the increase in yield from the use of Harvista. Overall benefits across all crop varieties for Harvista are harvest flexibility, harvest quality, higher marketable yield, reduced defect, and of course, increased profit, which is what we're all here to do. And just a reminder, you can optimize storage quality using Harvista in combination with Smart Fresh technology. Any questions, please contact your regional AgroFresh representative.
Thanks, Colin. Now we're going to pass it over to our guest speaker, Jeff Cleveringa, with him and Colin on Harvista usage.
Hi, Jeff. Thank you for joining us today. To start off, can you give us a brief description of your job title and what crops you manage?
Yeah, so Jeff Cleveringa with Columbia Fruit. I am an area manager, managing orchards in the Quincy and Royal City area, mostly apples and some cherries as well.
All right. Jeff, in your role, how important is quality and yield in helping your operation tell a complete story to the orchard consumer?
Yeah, great question. So for quality, I think we have to look at it not just from the farm standpoint, but also from the eating experience that the consumer is going to have. Harvista has been a good tool for us in being able to preserve that quality we get at the field and carry it all the way through to the end consumer. So it's all about consumers repurchasing apples. So if the consumer tries it one time and doesn't like it, they have purchased apples, but now they're going to switch. And so we've got to keep them buying apples again and again and again, because that's what our industry is built on, is that repeat customer throughout the whole year.
And taking your answer, do you see that becoming even more and more important as the years go on? Do you see this trend continuing in consumer demands?
Well, I sure hope so. I hope that the trend is more apples being consumed. I think the industry has done a lot to provide new varieties of apples and better eating experiences each time a new one is introduced, which is great for the consumer. Now we've just got to get consumers trying the new varieties and continue to eat apples. So yeah, very important. I mean, we have to have those consumers coming back again and again for those apples, for sure.
Absolutely. Jeff, how does your team use starch samples as a measure of quality, and why?
Oh yeah, great question. So starch samples are really a measurement to tell us, it's a snapshot in time that tells us where the maturity of the fruit is as far as its storability. So really it has to do a lot with, there's a relation to sugar, there's a relation to pressure, but in general, it really is about storability. And the fruit will use that starch as it converts to sugar and throughout the storage process. And that's how the apple maintains its life, is the conversion of starch and sugar. So by doing that, we have to have some we have to have some starch left in the variety. Honeycrisp might be one of the exceptions, that it can have a pretty minimal amount of starch, and because of its acidity and cell structure and other things, it can still last for a fair amount of time in storage. But other varieties like Gala and stuff are very picky on how much starch they will consume over the life of their storability. So
Good. And what do you value in a supplier in terms of support for your operation, and what value does that generate?
yeah, so obviously we're in a service-based industry, so we really rely on our suppliers to provide us with the service that we need and the expertise that we need at their critical time. So this industry is a very time-sensitive industry. We don't have a lot of time on our side, whether it's fruit maturity or making other decisions in the orchard. So having a supplier that can provide you with a very timely decision-making process is really important. And Harvest is one of those. So we need that expertise to tell us when is the optimum time to get the best results out of our harvest. And so it definitely goes back to the field and needing the tech support in the field to tell us exactly the best timing for it. This is a relational industry as well, so we like relationships. We like to know that when we call on someone, that they are there, and that they're reliable, and that they'll be there every year in and out. And so those supplier relations are critical. And I think you'll see this industry is a pretty loyal industry to suppliers that are providing them with the service or the quality or the products that they need. And even though it is somewhat price driven as a industry, I think really if you really weigh the pros and cons, you would find out that really it's supplier and supplier relations and the quality of the supplier. It kind of trumps all the other aspects.
Yep. How do you use Harvested to help bring in better quality apples from the orchard, specifically things such as bruising and splits?
Yeah, so I think when you talk bruising and splits, you really kind of hone in on two varieties. You hone in on Gala for stem bowl splits, and so in that respect, Harvesta is a great tool to help us not only keep the fruit on the tree at a good quality, but for a period of time, so that we can actually get across the orchard during harvest at the time we need to, in order to get that fruit picked at optimal. Stem split fruit is worth nothing. It's a cull, and so We can't have very many of those. We know there's always going to be a few in the tree just because of difference in maturity, but Harvista helps level that maturity out, keep the fruit at a more even keel so that we can have a longer period to harvest it. When it comes to bruising, then we're probably talking Honeycrisp is probably one of the biggest culprits for bruising. And we've seen where applications of Harvista, even not too far prior to harvest, has given us definite bruise reduction, enough that it is well worth the cost of the Harvista to do it. So it's kind of it's becoming a standard program now to do that in all of the Honeycrisp to get a Harvista on just for that bruise reduction. So it is quite a great tool.
Yeah, especially this last year, those Honeycrisp seem to have even more thin skin.
Yes, that has definitely been an issue, and as we get more and more Honeycrisp, every year becomes a bigger issue trying to get them off in the timely fashion. So yes, we're always battling that for sure. So anything we can do to make it easier for the picker or better results for the orchard is a win-win.
Yeah, and it seems like everything we're coming out with, half of them have a Honeycrisp heritage, so I probably won't be going away.
I would agree. You are probably exactly right.
And what are the synergies you see with Harvista and SmartFresh usages and the end result of a higher quality apple for the all-important consumers?
Yeah, so we've talked a little bit about Harvista in the field and the aid it gives the growers and the orchard and the picker and all of those things. I think when you add SmartFresh to the equation, you're just continuing that higher quality of care for the internal and eating experience of the fruit. So as you take it to the warehouse and they apply SmartFresh, it just helps preserve that quality of the fruit for a longer period of time. And anytime we do that, we're just giving that consumer a better eating experience. So whether that's increased acidity that it maintains over a period of time, or firmness, or any of those other aspects, some skin disorders, any type of stuff like that it can help on, is just a win-win for the orchard and then also for the consumer. And the warehouse just helps keep that process alive and going by the addition of SmartFresh.
Well, Jeff, we always appreciate your input within the industry, and thank you for your time coming out and talking with us about Harvista.
You're very welcome. It's always enjoyable.
Perfect. So thanks, Jeff and Colin. We will be coming back at the very end again for questions to ask live to Jeff and Colin as well. So if you do have any questions, please send them through the chat. We'll make sure to ask them when we get to the next Q&A session. But next, we're going to pass it over to Julio Cruz to talk about Harvista calibration and installation.
Hi, everybody. My name is Julio Cruz. I'm the Regional Operations Manager for the Pacific Northwest, and I'm based out of here in Yakima. Right, I'll be covering the Harvista kit installation slides. So, in the first slide here, we're just showing you what you'll need and what will be provided when you order one of our kits. So inside, you'll find a kit diagram, a kit installation manual, a kit installation video, and of course our water injection pump that comes as the heart of the kit. In this next slide, we show you a little diagram of how to plumb the kit in. Here you'll see how the water should flow when it's plumbed into your sprayer, how the Harvista product will flow, and then how the mixed solution goes through our kit and out to your booms. On the side here of the slide, you'll see a QR code that you can scan, and it'll take you right to the same picture that I'm looking at. In this next slide, we're going to talk about the actual kit installation. The first image you see there is a screenshot of what you'll need, and all those pieces will be included in the kit when you purchase it. You'll also see there in the middle a PDF of the kit installation manual that will also come with the kit. And lastly, on the right there, you see a QR code that if you scan will take you to the document. This next slide here is actually a video that we put together for you guys. If you scan the QR code again, we'll try to make it really easy for you to get all this. It will take you to the link on YouTube, and you can open up and play the video. In this next slide, we're going to show you another video. And this video is just to explain to you a little how our water-driven injection pump works. This is kind of the heart of the kit, and it's one of the most important components of the kit. Once we play this video, it's just going to show you how water comes in one side, how product comes in through the other side, how it mixes proportionately in the center, and then comes out mixed product. Again, I want to emphasize that this is a water-driven injection pump, so there is no electricity needed to run this pump. This next slide here is just a few examples of a few kits that we put on throughout the years on different models of sprayers, right? You'll see some models that are Durant Wayland. You'll see some Rears, some Turbo Mist, on target sprayers. Our kit is what we call a universal kit, and we're able to install it on all kinds of makes and models of sprayers. So next, we're going to talk about the actual calibration of the kit. These next slides are going to cover the calibration process. Just like before, we have a little diagram that's going to show you what you'll need. You'll need the kit calibration manual, which will be included, the calibration equipment that's also in the kit. We've also produced a video that we'll have access to through a QR code, and the calibration app. In this slide, the first image you see is the PPE and the equipment that's required to perform an accurate calibration. Again, we have the PDF in the middle that's embedded, and the QR code that you can scan, and it'll give you access to the calibration training guide. We recommend that you download the calibration app, and it's available both on Android and iOS platforms. You just have to type in Harvista, and you can download it. Any questions?
Great, thanks to Julio. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to come back for some Q&A. So we'll ask Colin, Jeff, and Javier Gonzalez is here representing the operations team to answer some questions. So again, as you guys have questions, please send them through the chat or through the Q&A, and we'll be able to ask those. And so perfect, awesome. Thanks you guys for joining for questions. Let's get started with some of the questions that we had that came in. So first, I want to start with Javier. So Javier, how long does the injection pump system take to install, and how often do you have to calibrate it?
So it should be anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour, just depending on how good the equipment is. Sometimes we need to do a little tightening hoses and changing hoses because they're pretty worn out. That's like, yeah, I'd say about 45 minutes, an hour and a half, just to be safe.
Perfect. And then do they have to keep that on all year, or can our growers remove that and put it back on? What's that process like?
Yeah, so that system comes with pockets that have set screws. You can unscrew set screws, take the whole system out. Hoses come with it. Pump comes with it. We use cam locks so they could reintegrate their own system and spray whatever they're spraying on their sprayer. So that would be pretty quick. That'll take about 5 minutes to take off. They set it aside, clean it out, and just wait for the next season to come on.
Perfect. Okay, great. So Jeff, we have a couple questions for you. So one that came in was, what are some of the important trends you are seeing as it relates to orchard and fruit quality management? So examples of like technology or digital tools for weather, sprays, and quality tracking.
Oh my, yeah, that's
it's a loaded question.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of things in that. So, I mean, the Research Commission is working on some alternative measurement tools for fruit quality and starch indexing and those kind of things. Some of them are a little futuristic yet, so they're a ways out. But I think systems that, from an orchard system standpoint, I think systems that are high light efficiency, even distribution of light throughout the canopy helps for ripening, all those kind of things. So if you've got big shaded areas, obviously that fruit is less mature and it's going to ripen over a different time period than fruit that's highly exposed to sunlight. So, and it's also going to color at a different rate too. So I think, you know, just canopy management is a big thing that's coming. Water management, fruit overwatering or underwatering, those kind of things are important. So the Smart Orchard that the Commission has been working with Washington State University on also has some new things that we're trying for quality management and parameters for how do you measure tree quality and fruit quality and how do we optimize both of those. So not sure I answered all that. There was a lot there, but if that person has more specifics, maybe they could send those back in. But
sure. Yeah, absolutely. Great. Thank you. So when we talk about fruit quality, so one of the other questions we had was, how do you determine harvest to application timing for your operation? So tools.
Yeah, so I follow what Emily says. That's there's probably tool number one. I think probably the trickiest one is Gala, just because, especially in warmer districts, Gala just runs right on the fringe of having enough color to harvest and fruit ripening being too advanced that we're going to start getting into stem cracking. So I think that to err on the side of slightly early is better on a variety like Gala. Varieties like Honeycrisp, if you're looking for leaving the fruit on the tree and extending harvest, it's a different timing than necessarily if you're just wanting to help reduce bruising. You can be much closer to harvest if you're just going to apply it for kind of some bruise sensitivity stuff versus if you're actually trying to maintain maturity on the tree. So I think it's variety specific. So I would work with AgroFresh on those things and follow your rep's recommendation. They've got a lot of experience, so they do a good job, but you're better to be 3 days early than 3 days late, especially on the earlier varieties.
Absolutely. Yeah, great. Okay, Colin, a couple questions for you. So what would happen if you put Harvesta in the tank and skip the injection system altogether?
Harvesta, unlike mini sprays, it's not always realized, but it actually gases off. So it's coming out as a gas, which is great for efficacy and coverage. However, it's not good for just dumping that in your tank because it will gas off in the water, and you'll be spraying a bunch of garbage. It will not come out. You definitely at this point want to be using our recommended kit, but again, we come out. Our team installs that and prepares it for you. And it's, some people are afraid of putting it on, but once you get it on, you realize it's a very easy process, very fluid.
Great. And so saying that it's a gas, talking along those lines, so coverage is not an issue, right? As it injects through the system and gases off. What is the range of gallons of water you can use during the application?
We get a large range. It is labeled down to 2. You have to keep in mind, we also spray with helicopters. We have helicopter applications. We've done work down to 12 gallons an acre of water per gallon of product. I think in the Northwest, we really go at 100 gallons an acre. That's more just because people told us they didn't want to make adjustments to the sprayers at that time to spray a different amount. Our kit holds about 10 gallons, so you could actually go down to 40 gallons an acre on our rears and get more coverage, and you'll still get the same efficacy.
Yeah, great question or great answer. Okay, I have a question here for Jeff. So if utilizing a different PGR, how is the decision to determine on whether or not to use Harvesta or another product like Retain?
Okay, well, I didn't know if we were allowed to say the other product. So anyway.
In the questions.
So they both have different mechanisms. Obviously, the Retain product has to be put on quite a bit earlier. And so the decision has to be made way in advance. The one thing that we all struggle with Retain is finding that perfect rate that doesn't inhibit color development. And it's always a little tricky because it is a little crop load based. So I think, you know, for me, my preference is always if we can get the Harvesta on. I have not seen the color inhibition from it. And the decision making can be done a lot closer to harvest. So instead of being 30 days or 28 days or whatever prior to harvest, you can get great results at 14 to 18 days before harvest. So the decision making is really, you know, if it's 2 acres, it's hard to get a 2-acre application if you happen to be cursed with a little block, you know, a small size that you're trying to manage. But, you know, if it's larger blocks, I think that the Harvesta, just the lack of, or Harvesta's ability to allow the fruit to keep coloring while maintaining maturity is a big plus for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. As we talk about quality, Colin, can you touch on just your experience with using Harvesta to use it as a tool for water core? So talking about like reds or Fuji's, varieties that are prone to water core, maybe Colin comment on it, and then Jeff, if you can comment it on as well, just using Harvesta as a tool for water core.
Yeah, obviously, you know, let's speak to Fuji's. That's a big issue. If you see a cold event coming and it's later in the year and we get those, we'll go ahead and go on, obviously, at least 3 days before that cold event. You can get closer, but ideally you go 3 days ahead. That will help you prevent the water core from such a cold event.
Great. Jeff, any comments on water core? Have you had any experience with that?
Well, I think, you know, water core is part of a maturing process. Fuji's a little bit different because it can be triggered by cold temperatures in the fall or just, you know, nice cool temperatures, even though the fruit's not maturing, or it can be triggered by light crop loads in trees. For reds and other varieties that get water core, it's just part of a harvest management tool. So Harvesta does a great job of holding off that water core and allowing the fruit to continue to color. So it works well on reds too. Fuji's, it's a little more tricky, like Colin was saying, just because we're really not trying to delay maturity in Fuji's typically. We are trying to more advance so that we don't get caught with a real cold event like last year where that ends harvest in November. So the timing on Fuji's is probably the trickiest one of all varieties to figure out how to best utilize Harvesta.
And as we're talking about fruit quality, so do you see any synergies with fruit quality treated with Harvesta? Or do you notice any? Yeah, we'll start there. 2 questions.
Is this for Jeff?
For Jeff.
Okay. Yeah, so this is a little bit subjective, but it seems like fruit that's treated with Harvesta respires at a more controlled rate when it gets to the warehouse. So it becomes easier for the warehouse to manage that fruit as well. Fruit that's not treated with Harvesta tends to come in, especially in the first half of the season prior to October, and the respiration rate is pretty fast. The fruits also has warmer temperatures, and stuff treated with Harvesta, when you look at like scrubber data at the warehouse for CO2 and other things, the fruit just is respiring at a lower rate. And then the application of Smart Fresh really also helps that out too. So it just seems that everything becomes more calm when the fruit gets to the warehouse.
Okay, Jeff, so following on that line, so as we talk about Harvesta and quality, one of the questions that came in was, did you notice benefits of heat stress reduction with the past two heavy heats that we've had the last 2 seasons, and any other abiotic stress advantages? So I think a lot of the time we talk about the heat events that we have, especially here in the PNW or in the East, Michigan, New York as well. But getting Harvesta on before that heat event, have you seen any advantages with the stress reduction of heat stress?
I have not really looked at that. So that, a couple of years ago when we had the really hot temps in June, the fruit was pretty small. It was very immature on the tree. And so I think we just most of us wrote it out and just let it, just did some overhead cooling and things, but I have not tried Harvesta for any sort of heat stress management of the tree.
Perfect. Yeah. Colin, do you have any comments on the heat stress? I think that we've done a lot of Harvesta applications. I think the year before last, when we had those really hot temperatures, and we were in like the 110s, 115s, being able to apply Harvesta early just to kind of hold that fruit quality through the heat event. So that when the heat ends, starches aren't blown and fruit isn't moving extremely fast.
Yeah, I looked at it I think last year we had some heat events depending on where you were during harvest time, and heat is going to accelerate the maturation process. So putting on Harvesta before a heat event buys you that time, because we also know we don't get great color during a heat event. So it buys you a few more days to get out of that heat event and get to some cooler nights with the same quality inside of your fruit.
Great. Okay. So Javier, back to you. We got a couple of questions. So when utilizing the kit, what are common troubleshooting issues that can occur? And how easy is it to fix it on the spot?
I feel like the most common one is probably an air leak somewhere. Just, it's easy to fix. You just got to find it. That's the hard part, finding it. It's usually a hose clamp. It's not tightened up or something like that. It's usually what it is, but or their main water tank has a leak on it or something like that, which that's a bigger problem in itself. But that's the biggest problem is air leak usually.
Perfect. And then can growers put the kits on themselves?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Yep. It just depends. We're there to help them. It's basically we've done them a certain way and it's worked. But if the customer wants to put on a different way, or they know something that we don't, I guess that works for them. That's also, it works. So yeah.
Perfect. And just to reiterate, just for the all the participants that are on. So in Julio's presentation, he did have the QR codes with the diagrams and the videos for the installation and calibration. So at the end of this webinar, as it's being recorded, you will be able to get a link to that. So if you did miss any of those diagrams or videos, the QR codes will be in the recording, and you can also reach out to any of your account manager representatives as well. To be able to give you those videos.
And Emily, can I add to the synergy question?
Mm-hmm.
The way I look at Harvested and SmartFresh is I look at it like going to bed, especially with my kids. You can't, it's hard to run a 3-mile race and then come back to your bed and just go to sleep. So you need time to, I think of Harvest as a wind down. It calms the apple down, because as soon as you pick it, you started a clock, right? You started this race for the apple to end itself. So what you're doing is you're slowing it down and calming it down. And then when you get it into the packing shed with SmartFresh, you're putting it to sleep. And so you get a much higher quality apple by slowing it down during that process post-pick than you do just letting it run right into a SmartFresh application.
Yeah, absolutely. There was just one other question that came in. It was asking about, can you use Harvesta on all different sizes of orchards and varieties? And so Colin, if you want to answer that one, or I can answer it as well.
Yeah, Harvesta has no bias. It doesn't care who you are or what you look like. Yeah, we apply to all varieties, all types of orchard, V trellis, old freestanding, single, it doesn't matter. It can get in anywhere. Even if it's a large tree, again, it's a gas. And so it has incredible coverage. And, I understand you don't want to delay some fruit maybe later, but there are the quality aspects we talked about, which is why it's important to talk to your account manager about the quality aspects, because we might adjust the timing of an application to fit that request. Like Jeff said, something like bruising, you want to do closer to harvest. Something like labor management, you're going to do earlier in the process. So there's an aspect of Harvista that fits for all varieties.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to add on to that I think that when it comes to application methods, so in the Pacific Northwest, we have helicopter applications as well as ground application with the Harvista injection system. But in the East as well, Harvesta is used all across. So we have teams in Michigan, New York, Florida, California. And so although we're talking a lot about apples right now, Harvesta is used across a wide variety of crops. I think Colin talked about pears, blueberries, cherries. There's other work being done on broccoli and other things as well. So I want to just make sure that when we talk about Harvesta, if there's any questions that you have on a specific crop or a variety, just reach out to your AgroFresh account manager and they can help provide some information to you as well. But on the variety side, we for apples, working with Jeff and the different teams here in the Pacific Northwest, there's a lot of varieties that we work with. And I think Jeff mentioned that, galas are treated at a little bit different timing than Honeycrisp, depending on what the quality goal you're looking for. And so, reach out to your AgroFresh account manager and have those discussions before the season, because we can definitely collaborate with our partners around the world on different varieties that maybe they're using in New Zealand or Australia that we also have here, to be able to kind of share information back and forth on what the different synergies are that they're seeing. So I don't see any other comments or questions coming through. Any last comments, Colin, Javi, or Jeff from you guys? Perfect. Okay, great. Well, Jeff, I want to thank you again for your time today and being a part of our Q&A session, and Javier as well for representing operations, and Colin for representing the commercial team. So the last thing I want to review is just kind of what the next series is going to look like. So thank you guys again for your time. Let me just share my screen and I'll go back to what we have for this next couple weeks. So on the screen here, we have what the next AgroFresh MasterClass Quality and Freshness webinar series are. So our next one will be May 18th. We'll be talking about fungicides and coatings, maintaining quality and freshness from storage to packing. And then on June 1st, we'll be doing an Apple Complete, a total freshness solution that is all about the apple. So over the last webinar, the two last webinar series and today, we've used the platform to look at all different crops across all different regions. And then the last one that we'll do on June 1st will be specific to apples. And so with that, I wanted to thank you all for your time and participating today. Please scan the QR code to let us know how we did and if there's any other questions that you guys have.